people talk about Conan video games, you usually hear the same ones. Conan Exiles, the survival game that's still going strong, Age of Conan, the little MMO that refuses to die, and of course the excellent 2007 hack and slash game simply called Conan. But there's one Conan game that you almost never hear about. It doesn't get any nostalgia posts, it's never been re-released, and honestly, most fans of Conan don't even know it exists. I'm talking about Conan, the Dark Axe from 2004.
Of course I've got a physical copy. Who'd you think you were watching?
So, what's the story behind this oddly invisible game? Well, it was developed by Cauldron HQ, a Slavic studio, and it was published by TDK Mediactive Europe. Even though the box just calls it Conan, the subtitle The Dark Axe came from... Honestly, I don't know where, because I've had this game for years and I've tried finding some place where it's called that, but there's not a game box or listing that I can find that add the subtitle The Dark Axe anywhere. I mean, this game isn't about a dark axe, and even the best axe that I got in the game is just called The Black Axe. I mean, the only thing that I found was that it was apparently a working title that just got stuck by fans years later? I don't know. The only source that I had was a wiki, and, well, those are about as trustworthy as a Twitch streamer accurately explaining world politics. Or Reddit. I'm just calling it The Dark Axe for my own sake, since it makes it easier to distinguish it from the much more remembered 2007 Conan game with the same title. This game came out in 2004 across Europe, Windows and Xbox got it in February, PS2 followed in May, and GameCube showed up spring in the following year. I wish there was more information about this game, because there's just something about it that, well, it just sticks with me, but there was very little that I could dig up. Sorry guys, usually I can find more, but that's all I got. Ugh, an Abandonware game has very little information about it. What a surprise, am I right? It's like this stuff was abandoned and forgotten for a reason. But before we even start playing the game, I suppose, well, since it's an old PC game, we have to talk about optimization. Actually getting this game to run on modern hardware does take a little bit of tweaking to get it running smoothly, but it does run fine for the most part. However, two notable issues presented itself to me during my playthrough. The first issue is mild, but it can cause some headaches, but it won't always be applicable. You see, if you're running a dual monitor setup like I am, be very careful of where your mouse is, because if it drifts over to your second screen and you click, it instantly minimizes the game, and that can lead to several headaches. This happened to me more times than I'd like to admit, and it's always usually in the middle of a fight too. Many panic attacks happened as a result of that. Now the second issue is a much bigger problem because this can be game breaking. So if you decide to play this game, do yourself a favor and cap the game at 30 FPS. Seriously. Now I do not know why this happens, but something about the frame rate being too high in this game will cause several issues. More specifically with climbing than anything with else. Now, climbing in this game is clunky enough. In fact, sometimes you'll press the button, Conan will walk over to the wall, and then just stand there, refusing to climb. But if your frame rate is too high, and I'm sure that this has something to do with that, this game cannot be beaten at all, because there is a section in the lava cave where if your FPS isn't capped at 30 FPS, Conan physically cannot climb past a certain point. I spent several minutes thinking that I was missing a button prompt or doing something wrong before I realized it was the game's problem. I have no idea how this works. I really wish I could tell you. I did some digging around to try and figure out exactly why this is a problem. Look, I know the game is like 21 years old and stuff. I'm not an idiot, so I do expect some clunkiness when running it on modern hardware, but I just, for the life of me, can't figure out why frame rate is preventing Conan from climbing this particular part of the wall. You know, it just, I can't figure it out. It has some technical and it's way above my head. I was thankful enough to find a forum somewhere online that was talking about what to do at this point, and if I hadn't found it, this game would have been left unbeaten, staring at me from my shelf, taunting me forever.
But I fixed it and beat the game, so ha! Victory! Thy name is Cobalt.
So those are my two recommendations. Either play on a single monitor or just be mindful of where your mouse is and fix that frame rate. Otherwise, the game surprisingly works fine. I mean, there was no random crashing, no color distortion, no compatibility issues, etc. Getting into the combat, because it's a Conan game, we gotta have some combat. It's like, that's like the one thing he's known for. You know, that and being always borderline naked. But combat in Conan the Dark Axe works fine on a surface level. You swing, you hit, things die, yeah. But the big issue isn't the swings themselves, it's the combo system. And when I say issue, I mean the combo system is completely pointless. I mean, heck, once I found a combo with the two-handed sword that worked for like 90% of the time, I never really deviated. The game keeps, unlocking combos as you progress, but why bother doing that when one or two simple strings bulldoze most every enemy in the game, especially this little death whirlwind move I kept doing? I don't know, I don't really get it. But it's like the devs wanted some depth with the combo system that you unlock as you play along, but honestly, it just feels more like busy work that you kind of tacked on. Also, there's no lock-on mechanic. You have to eyeball your range and positioning, which is fine for strategy purposes and a bit of difficulty, but it does make fights clumsier than they need to be. If they had just cut the fluff a bit and focused on tighter combat and maybe added a lock-on mechanic like Ocarina of Time, it would have been much better. There's other weapon types, so there's swords, axes, maces, two-handed swords, so in theory, that should be the biggest thing here, But the unfortunate reality of this is there's no real benefit to switching weapons. So just pick whatever weapon feels comfortable, stick to it, mash your go-to combo. It doesn't matter what you pick. Just pick your steel, crush your enemies, drive them before you, and enjoy the lamentation of their women. I was just tempted to put in an audio of like some hentai girl moaning and stuff, but I guess for the sake of not getting demonetized, I'm not going to do that. I will have to do a cheap imitation for you. I don't know. I don't know what I do in this channel anymore. But you see, that's the problem though with this game. It tries doing two systems at once, multiple weapon types and combos, but it doesn't really commit to either, and because of that, both of them honestly end up being completely useless. I wish they would have picked one or the other, honestly. I mean, think about it. If they had leaned into the combos, you could have had a game that rewards skillful play, learning strings, timing your hits, positioning yourself just right to unleash big damage, and maybe even added a juggle mechanic for extra fun. That would have made experimenting with new moves exciting instead of, well, redundant. Or, on the other end of the spectrum, if they leaned into the weapon types, you could have had a real strategic layer. Swords for quick enemies, axes for cleaving through groups, maces for smashing big armored brutes resistant to blades, two-handed weapons for poking damage and stuff. That would have made choosing your weapon way more meaningful. And instead, what we got was a middle-of-the-ground system where you don't need combos, you don't need weapon variety, you just find the one combo you like that you can pull off, you pick the weapon that looks the coolest, coast through the game. It's a missed opportunity that would have made the game way much more engaging in the combat. Look, I don't mean to harp on this and stuff. I'm not saying the combat's bad. It's not, but it's fine. It works. It's okay. But that's really it. It's just okay. It could have been so much better. And just like the combat, we have the story, which is... it's fine. That's it. It's just fine. The story begins with Conan returning home to find his village destroyed. Classic sword and sorcery setup. The bandits came, they burned everything, and now it's time for revenge.
You killed my mother. You killed my father. You killed my people. You took my father's sword.
But you see, these aren't just random raiders. They were after a magical mirror that, for some reason, was in Conan's village. Whatever, don't question it. And as you fight your way through dire wolves, you run into a sorcerer. You beat him down, and instead of dying, he morphs into a giant vulture and flies away. Trippy. The game does pull the curtain back pretty quickly, so you learn that it's not just any regular bandit raid. These are the Cult of the Vulture, a sorcerous death cult built around, you guessed it, a peacock. Okay, it's a vulture. It could have been a peacock. That'd be a little funnier anyway. But this does mean that Conan's revenge quest turns into a vendetta against an animal-themed cult, which is pretty much the plot of the 1982 film. Yeah, well, I mean, Nothing wrong with that. I mean, they were drawing some inspiration from the movie. I have no problem with that. It's my favorite film of all time. Honestly, they kind of wear that inspiration on their sleeve. I mean, they even use the Basil Palletteris soundtrack from the '82 film. That's the greatest soundtrack in film history, and I have no problems with that whatsoever. The levels are always pretty straightforward, and not a whole lot of plot development happens and stuff. I mean, you encounter some Picts. You know, can't have a good Conan story without some Pict slaying. These guys are weird. But along the way, Conan does meet a woman who briefly becomes his love interest. And when I say briefly, I mean she basically exists to sleep with Conan off screen, introduce him to another character, and then she completely disappears from the story until the end. She doesn't really have an arc. She barely affects the plot. She's just kind of there to tick the romance box and remind you that, yes, Conan is, in fact, the pulpy, buff ladies' man we know him to be. Conan smashes. I mean, it just really isn't a proper Conan story if he's not waist deep in a woman at least once, you know? I mean, Conan gets around. I'm honestly surprised he doesn't have like 20 bastard children running around Hyboria or something. If he does, I haven't read that story yet. Okay, so credit where it's due, but there is this one section of the game that really stood out for me. You see, after Conan hooks up with his love interest, she leads you to a city. You know, the character that she's introducing you to, he lives there. But this part ended up being my favorite section of the whole game. Now, instead of plowing through cultists and endless corridors, fighting off Picts and stuff like that, you get to explore a bit, wander around, talk to people, get into bar fights, and for a brief, very brief but shining moment, Conan the Dark Axe almost becomes a role-playing game. This is what I really wanted, okay? Because it's one of those levels where Hyboria feels alive. Instead of just wandering around deserts and jungles and stuff like that, it's not just a backdrop. It's a place where we can see that people live, thrive, and sell. And honestly, I wish the game had leaned more into this, because for this short stretch, it made me realize that after all of these years, we still do not have a proper Conan role-playing game. I mean, sure, there's another Abandonware title that's called Conan the Cimmerian, but I mean a true modern Conan video game, something like The Witcher, but with Conan, so it's infinitely better. By virtue of not being a work of plagiarism.
See, I wonder if anybody paused the video right there just to correct me in the comments. If you did, thank you for the engagement. I'm glad my rage bait worked. But while you're here, I have a recommendation for you.
I know I'm kind of like, gushing about this section for a little bit, but it's really not that expansive. It's really not that deep into role-playing at all. There's barely in it at all, actually. But playing this section just gave me a taste of the Conan RPG that I need in my life. And for that, I'm thankful that I actually played this game, and I say it was worth playing for me. It's kind of sad, though. I mean, all these massive RPGs with major sprawling worlds, and I have to settle for the crumbs and cry myself to sleep over it. Just give me one RPG, dang it. The story itself, it doesn't really pull any shocking twists or big revelations. It's straightforward, it's serviceable, gets the job done. But there is one element the game introduces that, honestly, I think it's actually brilliant, and it fits Conan to a T, and you won't believe what it is. It's the dying mechanic. You know, in most games, you die, it's just game over, and yes, Conan does have a few insta-death traps that boot you back to the title screen. Crom laughs at those, of course, but if you die in combat, that's when things get interesting. Instead of just reloading, you are pulled into the underworld, stripped back down to your starting sword, and you are forced to fight undead warriors. If you win, you're dropped right back into the fight where you died and given a second chance. Oh, and yes, there is still a consequence for dying in combat, because the more times you die in this one section, the more difficult these underworld encounters get. They spawn more undead, so it's not just a boring repeat, kill the exact same 5 enemies over and you're done with it. No, there's a real consequence to failure. And at some point in time, eventually, they're probably gonna get you. And I love this. It is such a clever design choice, and it feels perfectly in spirit with Conan's world. I mean, if we ever do get another Conan game that's either action or, in my hopes, that one Conan RPG that I really, really crave, then this is something that I would love to see return. It's a rare idea that I've never seen in any other game ever, and it just fits the theme of Conan. It fits the energy of it, the spirit, and it turns it into gameplay. Dying in combat, fight a wave of undead enemies and get another shot, Conan. You're strong. You earned it. But die by an instant death? Like a trap or something like that? Nah, screw you. Back to title screen. that is such a Crom thing. That miserable bastard. This is the part where I'm just still kind of gushing, but in all my years of playing games, I just never thought that I would be impressed by a death mechanic. And I can really appreciate that out-of-the-box thinking. There's some passion in this game, and it shows. Getting back to the story, though, it ends as you would expect. Conan tracks down the leader of the Cult of the Vulture, the Culture, I guess, Culture Vulture. This fight is really annoying, by the way. It's only saved by the cool underworld death mechanic because I think this part killed me the most. I'd be hazard to say that it was the part that I died at the most anyway. You see, you gotta run around breaking things, and all the ranged attacks will mess you up, and, well, there's not really a ranged attack mechanic except to block and know where they're coming from and hope to God they don't hit you. But when you finally do that, the Vulture Cult summon the final boss, which is, as you would expect, a giant snake. Is it a snake? Okay, so I know this movie is channeling the 1982 film Hard, and that was centered around Thulsa Doom and his serpent cult. Plus, the most notable villain of Conan is Thoth-Amon, and he's a priest of Set, the serpent god. So, I mean, I get it. I'm not against killing snake things or snake men or even big snakes in Conan. That's on brand. But it's just weird they had this whole vulture thing going on, and then the game says, screw it, big snake. Well, I mean, there's a very, very easy solution to this. Just have the Cult of the Vulture be the Snake Cult of Set. It'd be a very easy rewrite, and hell, even Conan the Animated Series made the primary antagonists a group of snake men. So it fit right in line with Conan's universe. And if the animated series can get it right, I don't see why this game couldn't. So here are my final thoughts. Conan the Dark Axe, if you couldn't already tell, is a very, very flawed game. But it does have moments of brilliance, and you can feel the passion that went into parts of it. I don't love this game, but I can't bring myself to even remotely hate it. It does plenty wrong, but it also does plenty right. Which honestly makes this game the perfect game to kick off Abandonware Adventures.
A game that time forgot, Conan the Dark Axe. A game that's fundamentally flawed, Conan the Dark Axe. A game that's got moments of brilliance and passion put into it, also Conan the Dark Axe.
I mean, it checks all the boxes of what fascinates me about Abandonware. The main reason I started the series is to find weird and hidden gem games. The fact that it's a Conan game too is just the icing on the cake for me. So here's the big question. Do I recommend you play it? Yeah, but with a catch. If you're a diehard Conan fan like me, you'll probably get some fun out of it. But if you're new to the character, I would actually point you to the 2007 hack and slash game instead. That one's more fun, has a better story, and honestly, it deserves a proper remaster or re-release. So Funcom, or whoever owns the rights to this game, get on it. I'm Cobalt the Crusader, and thank you all for watching. I will be streaming and covering more Abandonware games here, so if you enjoyed it, please be sure to hit subscribe. Also, recommend me some Abandonware titles in the comments. There are so many out there that it's kind of overwhelming at times, and half the time I don't even know where to go next. So if you got something for me to check out, please let me know. Until then, I'll see you on the next adventure into Abandonware.